Hey there, welcome back to the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. I am your host for today. Today we're talking about preseason rankings. We have been finally releasing our rankings for this upcoming season, going into the season, not where I project them to be at the end of the year, but going into the season. We have been releasing our top 25 on our social medias. We've been going five teams a day, starting at 25. By the time you're hearing this, this will post on Wednesday morning. 5 through 1 will not have been released, so you'll have 25 through 6. 5 through 1 will be releasing on Wednesday night. So if you're listening to or watching this, you're getting a little bit of a sneak preview of our top 5 teams in the country, although I'm sure pretty much everyone can decide depending on what order they'll be in. But yeah, you can pretty much predict the top 5 teams that I will have based on the previous rankings. But yeah, we're also going to expand out and we're going to talk our top 40. So how we're going to do this today is we're going to go 25 all the way down to 1, talk about a little bit of their teams, and then expand out past the top 25. We'll talk about 26 through 40. There's usually, give or take a few, around 40 teams that get at-large bids. And depending on where we're at in college basketball in March, whether it's a 76-team tournament or a 68-team field, it could make all the difference being around that 40 spot. So we're going to talk about all of that. Before we dive into it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We got a lot more fun shows coming up. Next week is going to be, we're going to talk about the 50 best non-conference games to know. So you don't want to miss that. We want to talk, some days that you should mark your calendars down to not do anything on that Saturday or that Tuesday night that have some big college basketball games. And then, as we mentioned, on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science, that's with 2 S's and Science. So go check that out. We've posted our rankings on there, and we're posting a lot more fun content on there. So be sure to go follow us there. All right, without further ado, let's dive right into it. We'll start at 25, work our way down to number 1, and then, as mentioned, go back 26 through 40 after that, just kind of all over the place. But starting at number 25, I got Michigan State. Last year, Michigan State was a 2 seed. They made the Elite 8. They are obviously coached by Tom Izzo. Their projected starting lineup looks like this: Jeremy Fears, Trey Fort, the transfer from Samford, Cohen Card, Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper back. So 4 of their 5 starters are back from last year. I have no concerns about this team's defense. This team's going to be really good defensively. Jeremy Fears is going to be a tremendous, as he's been, tremendous defensive piece. They got size with Kohler and Cooper. My concerns on the offense, I'm not 100% sure where the offense is going to come from. Trey Fort's going to have to really step up. Cohen Carr, we've heard he develops a jump shot, but we seem to hear that every year. Jackson Kohler is going to be the guy, in my opinion, to really lead this offense, but can he lead them to, another 2-ish seed? That's going to be a lot to ask for Jackson Kohler. But with the Tom Izzo team, ranking them outside of the top 25 is just blasphemy, in my opinion. So I think you just got to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Last year, that roster might not have been a top 25 roster, yet Tom Izzo took them to a 2 seed in the Elite 8, and they had a spectacular season. So Michigan State coming in our 25 spot. So we're going to get through these kind of quickly. Let's move on. And this is probably going to be the most surprising one to most people. At number 24, I have NC State under Coach Will Wade in his first season coming to NC State. Their 25 record was 12-19 last year under Kevin Keatts. However, Will Wade won a game in the NCAA tournament last year with McNeese. He brought a lot of his guys over, most notably Quadir Copeland. He's not going to be in the starting lineup. However, their starting lineup is really good. They have a lot of veteran pieces here. Trey Holloman from Michigan State, who we just talked about, he's a proven winner. Went to the Elite 8 last year. Terrence Arsenault, who has battled some injuries, but is coming from Houston, playing for Kelvin Sampson, they made the national championship last year. Tremendous defender. Darian Williams transfers from, this is the guy to know, transfers from Texas Tech. Made the Elite 8 last year. So what do you notice about these first 3 players? All 3 of them made the Elite 8. One of them made the national championship game. He brought in winning players. Darian Williams, a big booty ball guy, really backs down his defenders. He might be the ACC Player of the Year this year. That might be at first team for sure. We'll see how much he can pad his stats this upcoming year, because I think this team has the potential to really, put up some numbers both offensively and defensively. Jerry Dang also transfers in, as does Van Allen Lubin from rival North Carolina. He goes from North Carolina to NC State to fill out a really good starting 5, in my opinion. And with Will Wade won an SEC championship at LSU. He won at McNeese, made the tournament the past 2 years, won a game. Tremendous basketball coach and a very underrated lineup, in my opinion. Darian Williams, you got your star, you've got your veteran pieces. I really like this team. I think NC State's going to be back in the NCAA tournament, and I think they'll be a single-digit seed in this year's NCAA tournament. All right, at number 23, Wisconsin Badgers, coached by Greg Gard, Bo Ryan's replacement. Their starting lineup looks pretty good, in my opinion. And last year, I think I put Wisconsin, how many teams are there in the Big Ten? 18. I think I ranked Wisconsin 14th or 15th in the Big Ten going into last year's season. I do it every year. I underrate them every single year, and they just win. That program just wins. The bottom never falls off for Wisconsin. And this year, I think they got a good roster as well. So you could say 23 might even be a little high again. They were a 3 seed in last year's NCAA tournament. They made the championship game in the Big Ten tournament while eventually losing to Michigan. Their projected starting lineup looks like this. Nick Boyd transfers from San Diego State, also previously at Florida Atlantic. John Blackwell is the guy to know. John Blackwell is going to be the star of this team, can really score the basketball. Andrew Rohde transfers in from Virginia. Austin Rapp transfers in, and as Nolan Winter is back for another season. Nolan Winter looks to be a really highly regarded breakout candidate with the duo of him and John Blackwell and Nick Boyd, who has Final Four experience for Florida Atlantic. John Blackwell, Nolan Winter, that's a pretty good big three with some supporting casts along the way that can knock down some shots. I like this Wisconsin team. This team could, with just what we saw with last year's Wisconsin offense, if they can continue to do that, they were 13th in offense last year at KenPom, which is, a lot of people just resonate Wisconsin basketball as, kind of a Virginia type where they really slow it down. And that was the case for a couple of years, but last year that team could really score the ball. Now they lose John Tonje, who was, an All-American caliber player. They bring in a few transfers, but John Blackwell is set to be the replacement. And if he is outstanding, it's going to be a dark horse Final Four team. Sticking in the Big Ten, still weird to see him in the Big Ten, but number 22, I have the Oregon Ducks. Oregon, coached by Dana Altman, who has been there a very long time. Oregon finished as a 5 seed last year. Remember, they got off to a blazing hot start, then really kind of fell off later in the year, but they did win a game in the NCAA tournament before losing to former Pac-12 rival in Arizona. They finished 27th at KenPom last year as a 5 seed. That's a little low at KenPom. So they struggled later in the season, but kind of picked things up. But this year, they have just about all their pieces back, most notably Jackson Shelstad and Nate Biddle, 2 preseason all Big Ten players, as actually they just announced this about a half hour ago as we're recording this, about 12:45. They just announced that they put I think it was 10, maybe they put 12 players on all first team Big Ten, which is just ridiculous. Put it at 5, have a second team if you need it. But anyways, Jackson Shelstad and Nate Biddle were on there. Kwame KJ Evans is also back for another year. And then they get in transfers Devin Pryor and TK Simpkins to round out the starting 5. And what is a pretty good lineup for Coach Dana Altman. Remember last year, they got off to a hot start, as we mentioned, and won the first ever Players Era Festival. We'll see how they can do defending it later around Thanksgiving time in late November. Next up, another team that was in the Players Era Festival, which we're going to be saying just about every single team anymore starting next year, as it's just going to be ridiculous with 32 teams. Nevertheless, San Diego State, coached by Brian Dutcher, coming off, a little bit of an up and down year in the Players Era Festival. They beat Houston, the national runner-up. They beat Houston. They looked like they were, in position to be in position, and then just the offense just absolutely fell apart. Trying to find them here at KenPom. That's saying it. I have to scroll down. They ended up 51st at KenPom, 113th in offense. They were 16th in defense, which they're always going to be top tier under Coach Brian Dutcher. But yeah, 113th. They got to raise that up to, top 60-ish at worst. And I think they will do that this year. The projected starting lineup looks like this. BJ Davis, Reese Waters, who didn't play last year, is back. He was out last season, and he's a tremendous scorer. He can really put the ball in the hoop. So I think he's going to make an immediate impact. Miles Bird was kind of their stud last year. He is back for another year, flirted with the NBA draft, comes back for another year. Pharaoh Compton back, and Magoon Gwath, who they thought was going to transfer to Kentucky, ends up coming back. He'll probably be the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. Add that with Reese Waters and Miles Bird and all of this continuity. Whew, you're looking at a pretty good basketball team. 21st, I think they're a top 2, top 3 at worst mid-major this entire season. I expect them to be getting at large bid, and I think they are the heavy favorite to win the Mountain West this year, in my opinion. No, Utah State getting some hype, as is Boise State, as they should. They're great programs, have won a lot, but yeah, this San Diego State team is for real this year. I think their defense is going to be just magnificent, and if their offense improves too, they can get top 50 in offense. You're looking at a team that might be, top 20 at Ken Palm, and I have them 21st. So yeah, I believe in this team. I believe in Brian Dutcher. Should be another good season. All right, next up is Iowa State, number 20, coached by TJ Otzelberger, who's done a fantastic job there. This system's floor is just so high under Otzelberger. He's done a fantastic job. Their starting lineup looks like this. Tamin Lipsey, who will hopefully be back night one. He's their veteran guard, all Big 12 caliber player. We'll see what he can. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. That was, I think we talked about it on the last show about a week ago. So should be about 3 to 5 weeks now, as we're about 4 weeks from college basketball. So hopefully he's back. It's good for college basketball if Hilton is rocking and that Tamin Lipsey is back. Nate Heisey also back for another year. Milan Momcilovic looks to be a premier scorer in the Big 12 this year, back for another year. Josh Jefferson will make a huge jump, in my opinion. He was good last year. Don't get me wrong. He was good at St. Mary's prior to that. I think this is kind of his takeover the Iowa State, roster year. Momcilovic can really shoot it. Tamin Lipsey is a great floor general, terrific on-ball defender. I think this team is going to go as Josh Jefferson goes. And they also bring in Blake Buchanan, a transfer from Virginia, who is a pretty good defender as well. Last year, they ended up being a 3 seed. They were just demolished by injuries last year, all season long. And, they lost Keyshawn Gilbert late and didn't have him for March Madness. And it was just kind of an unfortunate season for Iowa State with injuries. And they were still a 3 seed. They were still a really good basketball team, but they went 25-10. I expect them to be top 20 again. If you think 20 is too high for them, I'm 100% hearing you out. I'm just a little worried about the Tamin Lipsey thing. So we'll see what, hopefully he's, good to go and 100%. But yeah, the floor so high under Otzelberger. All right, next up might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion. Some people might think this is a little bit too high for them, that they should be, maybe around the 20 to 25 range. I have Kansas under Coach Bill Self. I think this is a, just a year where he really gets back to being top tier coach. Over at CBS, they do a thing every year of the best X's, or I don't know if they do it every year, but they did it this year, of the best X's and O's coach in all of college basketball. Matt Painter and Dan Hurley were top 2, as they should be. Bill Self got like no votes. Now, if you were to ask that 3 years ago, Bill Self was like the premier coach where everyone's like, yeah, he's the best coach in the league until Dan Hurley, or in the NCAA, until Dan Hurley really stepped up to the scene and won back-to-back national championships. And nobody's really talking about Bill Self. They had 2 bad years by Kansas standards last year, a 4 seed and a 7 seed. I think this is a rebound year for Bill Self. Now, I will admit the roster doesn't look what it has the past 2 years, but the past 2 years, there were just too many mouths to feed. I think this year is just kind of a vintage Kansas season where they have, they have 2 studs, in my opinion, that could be all Big 12 players. And I think this is just kind of a gritty, just well-coached team that ends up in the top 20, and wouldn't be surprised if they got in the top 10 at one point this year. I think Bill Self has something to prove. He's recruiting guys for 2026. Like, they're probably going to have the number 1 or number 2 recruiting class when it comes to it. They've already got off to a great start. Yeah, I think they're going to be back. Last year, they went 21-13. We're a 7 seed after being preseason number 1. It was a disappointing year. I think Kansas fans are just so excited to see their DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson. I already can't even remember their names, but yeah, they're gone. Elmarco Jackson, remember him? He didn't play last year. He was out, former 5-star. He is back and should be in the starting lineup. He had a disappointing freshman year, was hurt last year. We'll see if he can make a big jump. He was a highly thought of recruit for a long time. The guy that knows Darren Peterson, he might average 20 a game. He's got the keys to the kingdom. I think he's going to be the best college basketball freshman this upcoming season. They also bring in Jaden Dawson from Loyola Chicago, Trey White to play the 4 from Illinois, and then Flory Badunga back for another year, a dunk everything, block everything kind of guy. Kansas was not as bad as you think they were last year. They were 24th at KenPom, which by Kansas standards is rough. They were 11th in defense, which pretty good, really good actually, but they were 52nd in offense. I think they're going to be better this year with Elmarco Jackson and Darren Peterson running point guard, and then with Jaden Dawson, who can, really spread the floor out, and Flory Badunga, who's a lob threat every time, a tremendous dunker of the basketball. He reminds me of Bam Adebayo. So we'll see what Kansas can do, but I'm a little more optimistic on Kansas than most. So put them at number 19. At number 18, I have Illinois, coached by Brad Underwood. He's gone the foreign route. So I like it. I really like it. I talked on our Best podcast that taking Illinois, I found Illinois at plus 1,200 to win the Big Ten. That was ridiculous. They're now down to like plus 500. So hopefully you got on it when I released that podcast. I like this lineup a lot. They don't have any holes in it, in my opinion. Mihajlo Petrovic, obviously foreign recruit. Kylan Boswell, who, when he transferred from Arizona to Illinois, I was like, I'm just off the Kylan Boswell train. I was wrong. He was really good last year. Bringing Andre Stojakovic from Cal, son of Peja Stojakovic, great shooter. The only concern I have with him, as he hasn't been on a winning team, but he's a tremendous scorer. So I think Underwood will get him ready. Hummerkaus. I would say Hummerkaus every time last year and get called out every time that it's Hummerkaus. Ben Hummerkaus back for another year, and Tomislav Ivisic, one of the best passing big men. I think he is going to step on the national scene this year and become a guy who is a well-known college basketball player. He is so good. Every time you watch him, you're like, this guy can shoot, this guy can rebound, this guy can pass. I think he's going to be the next big thing for Illinois basketball. It rounds out a great starting lineup. If you can get a passing big with Tomislav Ivisic, not dishing it out to Stojakovic and Petrovic running point, or whether that's Kylan Boswell. This team has a lot of options. I think this team's going to be really good this upcoming season. All right, next up at number 17 is Arizona, coached by Tommy Lloyd. Arizona, what a strange season they had last year. Started off the year 4-5, ended up 13th at KenPom at the end of the season. So a tremendous job by Tommy Lloyd. No more Caleb Love. Caleb Love is gone. Jaden Bradley will take over at the point guard position. Braden Burries, a 5-star freshman, should be at shooting guard. Anthony Del Orso, who was another guy who I didn't think would really translate too well, but he made some big shots last year, made some big threes. We'll see if he put on some muscle this upcoming season and can be a real threat. Koa Pete, another 5-star freshman, and then Toby Owaka, just did that massive linebacker body at the 5 to really be that post presence there. So should be a really fun team. They got a lot of depth as well. We won't dive too much into it because we got to get through this a little quicker. Last year they were 24-13. They were a 4 seed, made the Sweet 16, and I expect them to be really good again this upcoming season. Alrighty, at number 16, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide, coached by Nate Oates. Always just in the top 25 anymore under Nate Oates. Has done a fantastic job. Last year went 28-9, was a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. They obviously, just demolished BYU in the Sweet 16, where they put on an all-time shooting display and then got beat by Duke in the Elite Eight. So Duke went to the Final Four. So Alabama, they lose All-American guard Mark Sears, but they are replacing him with LeBaron Philon, who was back was a freshman last year. He's going to be outstanding, in my opinion. I am so excited to watch LeBaron Philon. There's a lot of talk about Tahad Pettiford at Auburn, and there should be. I think LeBaron Philon can be just as good because he is so good defensively as well. He is so fast, so incredibly fast. If he can develop a shot, you're looking at an NBA guard. So we'll see what he can do. A guy who does have a tremendous shot, Aiden Holloway, speaking of Auburn, transferred from Auburn last year. He's now in his second season under Nate Oates. Great shooter. He should be in the starting lineup to coexist with LeBaron Philon in the backcourt. Houston Millett, the former transfer from Pepperdine, is bound for a bigger role this year. I really like Houston Millett. I think he's going to be really good. Taylor Bowen transfers in from Florida State. Then Aiden Sherrill, the former, I believe he was a 5-star last year freshman, back for another season. They also have Latrell Wrightsell in the backcourt. This backcourt is fantastic. A little bit of concerns about the front court, which is why you won't find them in the top 10 of many rankings. But the backcourt, Philon, Wrightsell, Holloway, Millett, really, really good. Just with their system, I trust Nate Oates. I think this team's going to be, towards the top of the SEC yet again. All right, at number 15 is Gonzaga. This might seem surprising to a few. I haven't seen them ranked real high, and I don't know why. I think this team's going to be really good. I know last year wasn't awesome. They were an 8 seed last year and finished 8th at KenPom. So that kind of tells you a little bit of the luck that they had, losing close games, blowing out teams. But Mark Few, I think, is hungry to get back. Last year broke their Sweet 16 streak, and they almost got there by They almost beat Houston. That was a really good basketball game in Houston. Obviously, went all the way, or went to the national championship game. So you never know. Gonzaga not as bad as you think they were last year, which is why I'm kind of shocked they're not getting that much hype this year. But their projected starting lineup looks like this. Braden Smith, just pretend that's an E in Braden, not an O. I'm just now realizing it. Braden is spelled with an E, and this is not the Braden Smith from Purdue. This is the Braden Smith who was at Colgate, who was the Patriot League Player of the Year a couple years ago. He sat out last year, redshirted behind Ryan Nemhard, and now he's stepping into that role. I love that. I think that says a lot about a person that he's willing to do that and willing to get better. I think that says a lot about a point guard more specifically. So I think he's going to fill in really well. Jalen Worley transfers in. He was in the whole odd situation last year with Virginia when Tony Bennett left, but he's a tremendous defender. Adam Miller is a tremendous scorer. So you got a tremendous facilitator with Braden Smith, along with a good defender. Worley, a great defender. Adam Miller, a tremendous scorer. However, he was at Arizona State. Yeah, I know he was playing for Bobby Hurley. We'll see. Hopefully, Mark Few can get him to. We saw what he did with Caleb Battle last year. Who Caleb Battle was kind of just a float all over the place kind of guy, not on a lot of good teams. Adam Miller, kind of the same thing, but we'll see if he can, just kind of be that premier scorer shooter for Gonzaga. And they also bring back a highly thought of front court with Braden Huff and Graham Ike. Graham Ike could be a potential first team All-American this upcoming season. A lot of people really love Braden Huff. Not quite there all the way yet with him, but I see it. He's got tremendous touch for a big guy. They were 26-9 last year and an 8 seed. Remember, they did not win the WCC last year. I do think they're going to win it this year, just with St. Mary should be a little bit down. All right, at number 14, I have UCLA. Now, here's what I'll say about the next, all the way down until, 5, 4, 14 through 4. These could go in pretty much just about any order. Like, I think it's a top 14 right now in everyone's rankings. I don't see any of these teams being ranked higher than 14, in my opinion. Well, there's one who I have at number 12, who we'll talk about in a second. So if you see some people having UCLA at like 7 or 6, I really don't hate it. It's just there's like 14 good teams, in my opinion, right now. So they're coached by Mick Cronin. Last year, they were a 7 seed. They won a game in the NCAA tournament. They beat Utah State before eventually losing to Tennessee. Maybe the most notable transfer in all of college basketball, top 3 at worst. Donovan Dent transfers from New Mexico to Mick Cronin and UCLA. Sky Clark is back for another year, as is Eric Daly and Tyler Bilodeau. Tyler Bilodeau, really underrated, really good basketball player, formerly at Oregon State a couple years ago. Had a great year last year at UCLA and kind of just flew under the radar. Then Xavier Booker, the transfer from Michigan State. I love this first 4. Donovan Dent's awesome. Sky Clark, I didn't think was going to be great. He was really good last year. Don't get me wrong. Eric Daly should be in for a big jump, big guy. Tyler Bilodeau's awesome. Xavier Booker is going to be that piece where, what are you going to get from him? He was a 5-star recruit, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago now at Michigan State. He never really panned out, so we'll see what he can do playing the 5 in a new system for Mick Cronin, going all the way from Lansing all the way down to LA. So he's kind of the big question mark for me, at least. But Donovan Dent should cook, as should Tyler Bilodeau. I like this roster construction a lot. Have them as the 14th best team going into this upcoming season. At 13 is Arkansas. Arkansas, coached by John Calipari. What do you think of Arkansas's season last year? 0-5 to start SEC play, end up going 8-10 in the SEC, which is good enough for a 10 seed. They win 2 games. They pull off probably the biggest upset in all of March Madness last year, beating Rick Pitino and St. John's in the second round to get to the Sweet 16. They should have beaten Texas Tech as well. They had them down big, and Texas Tech came all the way back. So you could have been talking about an Arkansas Elite 8 team. However, my concern is just like, if they'd have lost first round, we'd have said this was a horrible first year. But Calipari, I mean, they really struggled in the non-con and in obviously early in SEC play, and he got this team back on track. So I think Calipari did a good job last year. They've got a lot of talent coming back again, including 5-star freshman Darius Acuff, who should be the next great Calipari guard. DJ Wagner's back for another season. Carter Knox is back, who should be a huge breakout piece just based on what we saw in March Madness last year. He went off. Should be really good. Trayvon Brazile also back for another season. Then Malik Ewan transfers from Florida State. So 22-14 last year, yet the Sweet 16. So they've got all the talent in the world. It's just, will this team mesh? Will they get off to a better start? If so, you could be looking at a top 10 team, a ton of talent on this Arkansas squad. All right, at number 12, I have Tennessee. Now, this is the one I said where people might have them, worse than 14th. This is a team I'm buying on. I got a future on them at plus 5,000 to win the NCAA tournament. That's kind of how high I am on this Tennessee team. Rick Barnes just does it every single year. He brings in, last year they were a 2 seed in the bottom right quadrant of your bracket. They were a 2 seed, made the Elite Eight, lost to the 1 seed. 2 years ago, they were a 2 seed in the bottom right quadrant, lost to a 1 seed. So 2 very similar seasons. They won 30 games last year. They were 30-8. They peaked at number 1 in the AP poll at one point last year. Now they do lose Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler, which were their 2, and Jordan Gainey, we should mention, which were their 3 really good pieces, along with Jemai Mashak is also gone, 4. So they're losing a lot. I get that. However, this just should kind of show how high I am on Jacoby Gillespie. I think he is going to be a star in the SEC next season. I know good guy over at CBS, John Rothstein, is also really bought into Jacoby Gillespie, which I kind of wanted to be the guy to, break him out. But John Rothstein, a little bit of a bigger voice. And so Jacoby Gillespie getting a lot of hype, and I think he's going to be awesome. Amari Abram should play the 2 this year. 5-star freshman Nate Ament. He's going to have to be the guy this year and really score the basketball to coexist with Jacoby Gillespie as their main scoring options. Jalen Curry also transfers in from Vanderbilt. How I said I don't really trust anyone who played for Bobby Hurley. I do trust someone who played for Mark Byington. Mark Byington's an up-and-coming star at Vanderbilt. We'll talk about Vanderbilt a little later in the show, but I trust Jalen Curry. I think he's going to fit into this just gritty, defensive-minded team under Rick Barnes. And then Felix Okpara, my goodness, one of the best shot blockers / dunkers / big men in the game. He broke out last year. I think he's going to continue to grow and be like one of the better defenders in not just the SEC, but in the entire country. So the big 3 is what I'm really relying on with Gillespie, Nate Ament, and Felix Okpara. We know Gillespie and Okpara are going to be great. Nate Ament also has to be great for this team to be what I think it can be. And I think they could, get into top 10 status in the country and be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament next year yet again. All right, at number 11, Louisville. What a journey it has been for Louisville fans. Great first year under Pat Kelsey last year, 27-8. They were an 8 seed. They ended up 28th at Ken Pom, which just blew the ranks off of what Kenny Payne used to be. Their lineup looks really, really good. I'm a little bit concerned about the physicality. We'll talk about it here in a second. Mikel Brown, 5-star freshman, tremendous shooter. Isaac McNeely from Virginia. Virginia played so slow, yet Isaac McNeely was hucking up threes left and right and making threes. Tremendous shooter. Ryan Conwell. If you've listened to this podcast, you know I love Ryan Conwell. He was on Xavier last year. Was he on Indiana State or Drake? I can't even remember the year before, but tremendous shooter. Javon Hadley is back. Kayshawn Pryor is back and should be healthy from what I've heard. So they have the continuity aspect, and it shows what Pat Kelsey is trying to go for here with all of this shooting. It's fairly obvious. It's just the physicality that's a little bit like, can this team win a national championship without being, which is crazy to say because Kayshawn Pryor is so physical. But the rest of it is just a little bit of leaner bodies can beat anyone at any time and can beat anyone at any time by 30. Like, I think this is kind of going to be similar to what Alabama was last year, is just going to play so fast and shoot as many threes in transition as possible. So I'm a little concerned about them like winning the national championship. Now I know that's splitting hairs, but like we're talking about, top 10-ish status. So I think this team's, don't get me wrong, is going to be awesome. So we'll see. I think I would probably have them about a three seed at the end of the season. Like I said, these rankings are going into the season. At the end of the season, I think their floor is just so high with their shooting ability and with Pat Kelsey as the coach. We'll just see just how high that ceiling can get. Can they be a 1 seed? Can they beat Duke, regularly? Can they? I believe they play Tennessee again this year. Can they beat a physical, defensive-minded Tennessee team? We'll see. I think this team's going to be awesome, and they're probably going to be the most fun team to watch in all of college basketball this upcoming season. All right, next up at number 10, I do have Duke just ahead of Louisville. Trust me, I know it's splitting hairs here, just two completely different teams. However, I think if this works, if this lineup really works, this roster could have a little bit of a higher ceiling than Louisville's, which like just in terms of winning the national championship, which is just, I know it just seems like false reasoning, but I went with Duke at number 10, coached by John Shire. Their projected starting lineup looks like this. Caleb Foster. I think he's going to be out of the starting lineup, quite frankly, quickly. A lot of people liked Caleb Foster 2 years ago, and then he stayed last year and just couldn't even get on the floor. I think Caden Boozer is going to end up being the starting point guard. Isaiah Evans is going to have to be the guy to really break out and be, their premier scorer, their premier shooter, excuse me. Dame Sarr, the foreign recruit, should play a great three here, great defensive player. And then Cam Boozer's the guy to know. Number 3 freshman, according to most databases. Number 1, in a lot of people's minds, he's really good. Those top 3 are all just really close. And Patrick Gongba, I think, is going to be awesome this year. I think he's going to be a clear breakout piece. So this team's got physicality with Gongba, Boozer, Sarr. Isaiah Evans should be your shooter this upcoming year. And then Caleb Foster, Caden Boozer. Yeah, we'll see. But 35-4 last year. They were a 1 seed. They ended up number 1 at KenPom last year. They were first in offense, 5th in defense. Obviously, kind of had a little collapse at the end to Houston, but should be yet a really, really good battle this year in the ACC between Duke and Louisville. Just more physical compared to just like shooting. It's like, well, what do you go for? I don't know. I went with Duke. I think it's Duke's until it's not, but we will see this upcoming season. All righty, at number 9, BYU, coached by Kevin Young, year 2. Made the Sweet 16 last year, had a great run. They were 26-10. Obviously got beat pretty badly by Alabama in the Sweet 16, but had a good run to get there. Really good basketball team. They beat Wisconsin in the round of 32, who we just talked about. They were the 3 seed, so really good seed first year under Coach Kevin Young. However, this is the most anticipated season in maybe BYU basketball history. This starting lineup is loaded, absolutely loaded. Rob Wright transfers in from Baylor, lightning fast guard. Kennard Davis also transfers in. Richie Saunders is back for another year. When BYU really took off last year, it was thanks to Richie Saunders. He had a huge March Madness and huge just late year run. AJ DeBanza is the name to know. He's the 5-star number 1 recruit by most of the databases. He's just, we'll talk about it here in a second. Kiba Keita, who I think is awesome. He is a freak athlete at his size. I would be scared to death to take a shot in the paint with Kiba Keita down there. Let's just say that. So they have an all-time starting 5. How will it mesh is the only question. Richie Saunders was the guy last year. Is he going to be able to step back a little bit? Because AJ DeBanza is going to get his shots up. Rob Wright's going to do a good job running the point, but DeBanza is going to want his shots up. So it's going to be hopefully, good basketball to watch, good ball movement, but will it be just, late in the shot clock, your turn, my turn sort of stuff with Richie Saunders and AJ DeBanza? That's the only reason I don't have BYU like top 5, top 7 right now. But I think this team's going to be really good. And quite frankly, I would probably have AJ DeBanza 3rd in my rankings. I would go Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, AJ DeBanza. So I'm a little lower on him, but I want Richie Saunders to still get his shots up just because of what he did last year. And he led a team that was like really good for a while. So I hope they don't take the ball away from him. Hopefully there's no, locker room issues, but yeah, an all-time starting 5. Next up at number 8, I have Texas Tech under Coach Grant McCasland. Made the Elite 8 last year. Probably should have went to the Final Four, and who knows what they could have done. Remember that Walter Clayton, Thomas Houck just turn on for for Florida to end up beating Texas Tech in that Elite Eight game. It was a good one. So they lose Darian Williams, as we mentioned, to NC State. Christian Anderson will be the guy to step in and really make the big impact at the guard position. He is a tremendous shooter, really went off in March Madness last year. He's going to be a guy to know. Donovan Atwell also transfers in. Lawan Watts, another transfer from Washington State. Lawan Watts is going to have to play a big role for this team to be a top 10 team, in my opinion. A little higher on Lawan Watts than most people. I think he's going to be really good. And then JT Toppin, the guy to know, National Player of the Year candidate, first team All-American, kind of lock, in my opinion, unless obviously unless of an injury, hopefully not. But and then Luke Bamgoy from transfers in as well. So JT Toppin, Lawan Watts, Christian Anderson. That's your big three. Christian Anderson just knocking down threes. JT Toppin does so many things so good. He was just, I mean, with him and Darian Williams last year, along with Christian Anderson, getting them to the Elite Eight and looking like a national championship contender, I think this team's going to be really good this year, as long as Lawan Watts is serviceable and, a 10-point per game scorer. I think this team's going to be really good, and I trust Grant McCaslin with my life. He is an incredible basketball coach. Texas Tech is having very, very good success in college sports right now, just with football as well, doing really well, and Texas Tech basketball seems to have all the money in the world. It is a growing university in the athletic department. All right, at number 7, we have the Kentucky Wildcats, coached by Mark Pope. They were a 3 seed last year, had the most top 25 wins, I believe. Someone fact check me. I believe in team history. I'm not sure if it was NCAA history too. I think they might have tied the record. So yeah, Mark Pope did a great job in year 1 with a brand new roster. It looks like a much better roster this year, in my opinion. Jalen Lowe transfers in from Pitt. Denzel Aberdeen transfers in from Florida, who won the national championship last year. Otega Owe is back, my SEC Player of the Year. Muhammad Diabate transfers in from Alabama, and Brandon Garrison back for another season. It was clear what Mark Pope wanted in this offseason cycle, and he wanted defense. He brought in Muhammad Diabate, Denzel Aberdeen, and also Jaden Quaintance from Arizona State, who will be injured to start the season, but is a tremendous shot blocker, just a huge body. The Mark Pope has also went on some shows and talked about just how good of a leader Jalen Lowe is. So the only concern I have with this Kentucky team is Jalen Lowe getting along with Otega Owe, because Jalen Lowe likes to get his shots up, but Otega Owe is the star. He's probably going to be the SEC preseason Player of the Year. Like I said, he's my Player of the Year. The defense was a big issue last year. So Kentucky finished 16th at KenPom last year. They were 10th in offense, 51st in defense. To be a national champion, you probably got to be top 30, we'll say, to be like a top 7 team in the at KenPom. You probably got to be at worst top 30. Like Alabama last year was 6th in KenPom's final season. They were 4th in offense and 28th in defense. So if Kentucky can really improve that defense, this could be a team that could win the national championship in my mind. It's just, can Jalen Lowe and Otega Owe really not do your turn, my turn stuff? I don't think it's going to happen, because Mark Pope is such a good offensive coach. He's got such a good offensive mind. With Diabate, with Jaden Quaintance coming back, playing great defenders, and Aberdeen, a tremendous defender on his own, and as is Otega Owe. Otega Owe is an awesome defender. That was what he was known at Oklahoma before last year. He just popped off. So this team's got all the pieces. They're so deep. This team is so incredibly deep. I won't bore you with the depth and talk about the bench players, but this team could be really good, and I think a national championship contender. All right, next up, sticking in the SEC, the defending national champions. Number 6, Florida, coached by Todd Golden. This might seem a little high or a little low, depending on what your definition is of low and high. Some people might think they should be a little better ranked. They might be preseason. I think they'll probably be preseason number 3 or number 4. I have them at number 6. I'm a little bit skeptical about the shooting. However, this is a great starting 5. They have 3 players on this team, all in the front court, who, actually they have 4, but 3 starters who won a national championship last year and played a huge role, that being Thomas Houck, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu, also Han Lockton, who came back from the injury, got rid of his red shirt, and won national championship last year. So they lose Elijah Martin, they lose Denzel Aberdeen, they lose Walter Clayton Jr., they lose Will Richard. They bring in Boogie Flan from Arkansas, who was hurt most of the year last year, but we know what he can be, former 5-star recruit. And Xavier Lee, the transfer from Princeton. I'm a little bit concerned about Xavier Lee transferring up. He's just thin. That's pretty much the only reason. He had NBA draft buzz early in his career, just kind of fell off, and there's a reason for that. So we'll see how he can transfer up. I think Boogie Flan's going to be awesome. However, where is the shooting? Are they really going to rely? Like, Thomas Houck's a good shooter, don't get me wrong, but he's also a big body. Is he going to really be forced into that three? He's definitely going to start at the three. I saw a interview with Todd Golden saying he's probably going to start at the three. So I'm just a little bit concerned about where the shooting's going to come from. Alex Condon's awesome. Ruben Chinyelu is an awesome defender, awesome rebounder. Houck is great. It's just a little bit of weird roster construction for me, which is why I have him a little lower. Still fantastic. I have him 6th in the country. Still really good. But yeah, I think they're going to have to find some shooting if they want to go back to back. They do have a true case. They have a case of, there'll be a big story this year, just like UConn was when they were defending and they ended up doing it again. Florida will be in the same boat. Todd Golden, rising star, Boogie Flan, going to pop off. It's just, can they get some shooting? We will see. All right, moving into the top 5. At number 5, I have St. John's, coached by Rick Pitino. Another one where I've seen them, I've seen them as low as like 13th in some rankings. I've seen them as high as, I think Gary Parrish at CBS has them number 1. So you can see it everywhere. Probably the best roster, talent-wise, just throw all the talent together in college basketball. Ian Jackson transfers from North Carolina. Ozziah Sellers transfers from Stanford. Hosan Sanin transfers from Arizona State. Bryce Hopkins transfers from Providence. Zubi Ejiofor is back. Zubi Ejiofor will be your preseason Big East Player of the Year, I would think. Defensive Player of the Year for sure as well. Let's talk a little bit about St. John's. They're a really interesting team. Let's talk about off the bench as well. They also have Dylan Darling, who will play a huge role along with Dylan Mitchell. So the Dylans coming off the bench should be key impact players as well. So 1 through 7, it's the most talented roster in the country. However, the point guard question does scare me. Dylan Darling will probably I think he's going to play a lot more minutes than you might expect just with this starting lineup. He might be playing, I don't know. I don't even want to take a guess. It's just, like I said, it's just a weird put together roster. Ian Jackson is supposedly going to start at the point guard, according to Rick Pitino. Ozziah Sellers should, be a contributing piece. Hosan Sanin was a highly thought of recruit. However, he also played for Bobby Hurley last year. And, there was kind of the whole thing where he left Arizona to go to Arizona State. I'm not sure how that's going to mesh with a no nonsense Rick Pitino kind of coach. So we'll see. Bryce Hopkins could be a, force in the Big East as long as he can stay healthy. So there's just a little bit of questions. However, when you look at their individual talent, Ian Jackson, awesome. Ozziah Sellers, awesome. Hosan Sanin, tremendous shooter. Bryce Hopkins, awesome. Zubi Ejiofor, obviously awesome. And then Dylan Mitchell could be the Big East Defensive Player of the Year with Zubi Ejiofor. Dylan Mitchell is a tremendous athlete who might come off the bench. I'm kind of just guessing with this lineup. Could they move Bryce Hopkins to the 3, Dylan Mitchell at the 4, Zubi at the 5? Maybe Ian Jackson. I don't know. Ian Jackson at the 2 with Dylan Darling at the 1. It's a confusing fit roster. However, with Rick Pitino as a coach, we shouldn't be doubting him. I mean, what hasn't he done? Last year, they went 31-5, won the Big East regular season, won the Big East tournament, ended up a 2 seed, and then, as we mentioned, lost to Arkansas in the round of 32. But tremendous amount of talent, tremendous coach. Will it all mesh? That's the big question. Top 5 team, in my opinion. At number 4, you might notice we haven't talked about Michigan yet. Yes, how about Michigan under Coach Dusty May? Made the Sweet 16 last year, won the Big Ten tournament last year in the first year under Dusty May. And this year, boy, oh boy, does he have a loaded roster. Elliot Cadeau transfers from North Carolina. A little bit of, mixed emotions, feelings about Elliot Cadeau for Michigan fans and for North Carolina fans. Roddy Gale Jr. and Amari Burnett are back from last year's team. The big transfer is Yaxel Lendeborg, transfers from UAB, flirted with the NBA draft, came to Michigan. Ade Mara transfers in from UCLA, 7'3", big man, didn't play that much at UCLA, which was strange to me. I'm not quite sure why he didn't, but Mick Cronin knows what he's doing, so that raises a little bit of concerns for me. However, if he's not as good as some people think, Morris Johnson from Illinois also transferred and will probably be coming off the bench. Maybe he'll start at the 5 instead of Mara. But Mara's on-off numbers are fantastic. His defensive ability is tremendous with his length. He's got good touch. Yaxel Lendeborg will be the primary offensive piece. Two big men here, just like they did last year with Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf. This year it'll be Lendeborg and Mara, and Morez Johnson. Throw him in there, which is why, wow, that's probably my favorite front court in the entire country. However, the big concern might just be the shooting, if there is a concern. Elliot Cadeau, we know, he just hasn't developed the shot yet. We see the talent. He's lightning fast. He hasn't developed the shot yet. Will he do it under Dusty May? We'll see. Roddy Gale is probably your best scoring wing, formerly at Ohio State. He really played better as of late last year. Same with Namari Burnett. However, they're not like elite scorers. They're really slashers and can really get to the rim. They can shoot. However, one of them is just going to have to be a really good shooter, in my opinion, to space the floor. Yaxel can space the floor as well. So a little bit of spacing, but if Roddy Gale can be like an all, not all Big Ten caliber player, but, all Big Ten honorable mention caliber player where he's averaging, 12, 13 a game and on maybe one of the best teams in the country, I think this team has national championship aspirations. Dusty May said that on a recent podcast that he thinks he has a chance this year to really win a national championship. He thinks this team can do it. If he's doing it, I trust him. He's a fantastic coach. I think Michigan's going to be really, really good this year. At number 3, I have UConn. Yes, I'm going with UConn, and here's what I'll say about UConn. They are my pick to win the national championship this upcoming season. I know, why do you have them at number 3? Because like I said, this is going into the year. They're going to grow. They're going to grow with Dan Hurley. They're going to get they're a little bit, they got a little bit of just meshing to do with a freshman, with a big transfer who's going to play huge roles. We'll talk about it. So last year, disappointing year, 24-11. They were an 8 seed. They almost beat Florida. Remember, a lot of teams almost beat Florida and didn't, and Florida won the national championship. So that shows just how gritty and awesome Florida was. UConn got better as of late. However, it wasn't the previous 2 years team, which is hard to do as they were national champions. But I think they fixed the roster issues this year. Silas Demery Jr. transfers in from Georgia. He is going to be fantastic. I love Silas Demery Jr. Maybe my favorite fit transfer for this upcoming season. He is going to play the role of Tristan Newton, what he did winning 2 national championships for Dan Hurley. He's going to be awesome. He was awesome last year. He's going to be awesome this year. Solo Ball is, last year he was supposed to be the real breakout piece. He was good. He wasn't, All-American good, which they thought they needed him to be last year, and he just wasn't. But this year, he should be able to just be, a good shooter and a good scorer and not have that much responsibility on his back. Braylon Mullins is the 5-star freshman who will be thrown into the starting lineup. Great shooter, great player. Alex Caraban, who has also won, 2 national championships. He is back for his last season, just a winning player. And Terrace Reed Jr., in my opinion, is going to make the biggest jump out of anyone in college basketball this year. He split time last year with Samson Johnson. His per 40 numbers were awesome. He just only played like 20 minutes last year. And I think with a bigger role, if he can play 30-ish minutes this upcoming year, I think you could be looking at an All-American. This guy is a freak athlete offensively and defensively. To go with an outstanding point guard in Silas Demery Jr., they have shooting in Solo Ball and Braylon Mullins, and even Caraban. Caraban had to play the, just the lead role too much last year when McNeely got hurt. UConn also has Malachi Smith. They have Jalen Stewart. They have Jaden Ross coming off the bench. They have depth. I think the roster construction is perfect with Silas Demery, as we mentioned, the shooting, and Terrace Reed just being a legit dude who I think is going to be awesome. If all of this hits, I think they're my pick right now to win the national championship. I think this team's going to be awesome. As mentioned, Malachi Smith, we should also mention him coming off the bench to, how much will he play with Demery? We'll see, but I like this roster a lot. They obviously have championship pedigree. They have an outstanding coach. I am bought in on this UConn team. They are my biggest future bet that I place this upcoming season. All right, at number 2, I did go with Houston. So I said it before that I thought Houston was going to be my number 1 team. I ended up going with them at number 2. Coached by Kelvin Sampson, the national runner-up last year. Their projected starting lineup looks like this. Milos Uzan, back again. Flirted with the NBA draft, but he is back. Kingston Fleming's 5-star freshman. Emmanuel Sharp, back again. They got the experience. JoJo Tugler, back again. JoJo Tugler is my piece that I think makes this team awesome. He's going to be so good defensively. My preseason pick for defensive player of the year in the entire country. He is so long, 7'6" wingspan. My goodness, he blocks everything. He also pounds the glass. He had that huge offensive putback dunk in the game against Duke. I think we're going to see more of that this year. And then they also have another 5-star freshman in Chris Senak Jr. This team is loaded. They got shooting. They have the pedigree. They have the upside with the freshmen. I think this team could do it. They went 35-5 last year, almost won the national championship. They're on a revenge tour. Who knows how much longer Kelvin Sampson is going to do this? He's fantastic. I trust his system. This seems like it's a little bit of a different Kelvin Sampson team with the high pedigree or with the high upside freshman with Kingston Flemings, Chris Senak, but with the continuity of Uzan, Sharp, and Tugler. My goodness, this team's going to be really good. I think they could. I would not be shocked at all if we see them number one in the polls at one point. Now, I think they're going to be preseason number 2. And I do think preseason number 1 in the AP poll is going to be Purdue. They would also be my preseason number 1 team. You just got to look at their starting lineup and say, yeah, this starting lineup is just probably better than everyone else right now. Last year, well, we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's talk about their starting lineup. Braden Smith, who will be the preseason player of the year in the entire country. Great assist man, could break the all-time NCAA assist record. Fletcher Lawyer is also back. Great shooter, as is CJ Cox, who should make a big jump this year. As a shooter, Trey Kaufman-Wren, an honorable mention All-American last year, back, averaged over 20 a game. The duo of Smith and Trey Kaufman-Wren really went great last year. Then they also bring in transfer Oscar Clough, and they bring in him from South Dakota State. They also get Daniel Jacobson back. This team's going to be really good. However, the concern is last year, like they had 4 of these players last year, and they were a 4 seed. They went 24-12, so that would be my only concern, but I don't think there's any questioning that this starting lineup is just awesome with another year of continuity, another year of coming back. And with that being said, they got better as the season went on last year. They made the Sweet 16, put up a really, really good fight against Houston, almost won that game. So that team competed. They got better. I know it was kind of a struggle to start the season, but yeah, they're going to be outstanding this year. They got the best guard in the country, one of the best big men in the country, and they have depth, and they also have Matt Painter as their coach. It is a recipe for a very, very successful season. They will be my preseason number 1 team. All right, so that is 25 down to number 1. Now let's just talk about 26 to 40 really quickly. I know we're over 50 minutes in this episode. So here is the entire list that we'll be posting in a little bit here. So let's just start at 26. As we mentioned, Michigan State was 25. Remember that 15 minutes ago. Michigan State was 25. At 26, I got Ole Miss under Chris Beard. We'll see what he can do. He brought in some high-level transfers with AJ Storr. And yeah, we're not going to talk about all of these rosters, but Ole Miss should be in March Madness yet again, I believe. Now, I have North Carolina at 27. I know this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion. Some people might have them a little bit higher. I just don't know about Hubert Davis. I'm not 100% sure this could be like a top 10 team. They have some talent. You know, they brought in Henry Visar. They brought in a bunch of other guys. I'm not going to dive real deep into it, but it still just doesn't look like the best. Like, it doesn't look like a top 15, top 20 roster in the country. I don't think Hubert Davis is a top 15 or top 20 coach, so I have them down at 27. I have Auburn at 28. I've said it for a while if you've been listening to the podcast. I haven't been a fan of this roster even when Bruce Pearl was the coach. Now with Stephen Pearl as the coach, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough start. They have a brutal non-conference as well. Stephen Pearl is jumping into the fire immediately with what I believe is not a fantastic roster and just a unbelievable non-conference. So good for that. That's going to be fun to watch. At 29, this is going to be a little bit surprising to some people. I have Virginia under Ryan Odom. I think this team's going to be really good. I like the pieces they put together. I think they're going to start edging back to vintage Virginia. They have a good transfer class. They have a good coach in Ryan Odom, who's won everywhere. I think Virginia is going to be a single-digit seed in this year's upcoming March Madness tournament. Number 30, I have Ohio State. Ohio State is not any worse than a top 20 roster in the entire country. However, same maybe could be said last year about that team. They had this year, the big thing is their trio that they have coming back: Bruce Thornton, John Mobley, Devin Royal. Yes, it's great to have another year together. However, they had them last year, and this team, like, they were, I think, first four out, and they shouldn't have been first four out. And unfortunately, um, Jake Diebler's back for another season. I think this is Jake Diebler's last season, unless he's a top 7 seed, because this roster, obviously, Ohio State has all the money in the world. Look at football, look at their prior history in basketball was awesome. Here's what I will say about Ohio State. And this is coming from an Ohio State fan. Cover a lot of Ohio State stuff, just live down the road from it. So, Ohio State fan, I think Chris Holtmann is a better coach than Jake Diebler. And I don't even know if that's like a hot take. Something happened when Ohio State lost to Oral Roberts as a 2 seed. I don't know what it did to Chris Holtmann or what it did. And I'm not saying they weren't wrong to make a change. However, if you're getting rid of Chris Holtmann, who was like your guy to go to years ago when he was at Butler and he did a fantastic job at Butler, like this was the guy to hire for Ohio State, then you move on from him. So you got to be thinking you're Ohio State. You got to go get Dusty May. You got to go get Darian DeVries. You got to go get, high level coaches. Why would you internally hire from a coach who learned everything from Chris Holtmann and doesn't have as much experience? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I like Jake Diebler. I think Jake Diebler is going to be a good coach at some point. He just needs more experience. He's young. He's energetic, which is awesome, but he needs the X's and O factor a little bit more. I think Ohio State could range anywhere from like 15th to like 50th this upcoming season. So we'll see. Now, labeling off just the next 10, Texas at 31. A little bit concerned about the roster construction there. It's got a lot of talent, but yeah, going to be a lot of your turn, my turn kind of stuff. They have all the talent in the world. So if it works, could be a really good basketball team if Sean Miller can fix it. But if it doesn't, we'll see. Next up, I have Iowa under Ben McCullum. Bennett Sturts transfers in with him as well. We'll see what Ben McCullum can do. This is a team I'm just rooting for. I hope Ben McCullum becomes the next big thing because it's just such a cool story. Vanderbilt, we said we were going to mention him. I love Ben McCullum so much at Iowa. I love Mark Byington almost as much at Vanderbilt. I think he's a rising star. Tremendous X's and O's coach. I think he's going to be, if he gets Vanderbilt to another NCAA tournament, he is going to be a popular pick to replace some of these coaches we talked about, maybe even North Carolina or Ohio State, like we just talked about, if those jobs were to open up. So Mark Byington, keep him there. Missouri at 34. Another team I could see being a lot higher or a lot lower. I kind of just consider Texas, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Oklahoma like the same. Like I have no idea who to put ahead of each other in the SEC rankings and these rankings. They bring back 2 stars in Anthony Robinson and Mark Mitchell. So that's kind of just what I'm going with. I think they're going to be a NCAA tournament team again. Dennis Gates went from 0-18 2 years ago to a 6 seed last year. So we'll see. We'll see what we're getting. USC under Musselman at 35. Much better roster this upcoming season. A ton of talent. We'll see if Musselman can put it all together. Next up, I have Maryland at 36. I know a lot of people don't like this roster. I do. I trust Buzz Williams. I trust the continuity of Solomon Washington and Farrell Payne at transferring with Buzz Williams to Maryland. I think this is going to be a team fighting for an NCAA tournament bid. Baylor, what do you do with Baylor? They have no players back yet. They accumulate talent because they're Baylor. Scott Drew's a good coach. Hasn't been great the past couple years. No idea what to do with Baylor, but threw them in here as well. Indiana in year 1 under coach Darian DeVries. I like Darian DeVries a lot. I think he's a very underrated coach as well. I think the roster just doesn't look awesome, but with Darian DeVries, and if he can, it's going to be a new brand of Indiana basketball, which they desperately need. Next up, Oklahoma, as I mentioned, just in that boat with Texas, Vanderbilt, Missouri. They bring in Nigel Pack, Xavier Brown. We'll see what Oklahoma can do under Porter Moser. They'll probably get to like top 10 in the AP poll in the non-conference and then go like 7-11 in the SEC, just like they do every single year, it seems. Then I have Creighton up after that. I don't know about Creighton. That Owen Freeman injury is really concerning. I don't know how they're going to defend anybody this year. Their offense should be really good. And Greg McDermott is an awesome basketball coach, but I'm a little bit concerned about the defense. Also, just want to mention Utah State and Boise State could also be on this list as well. They would probably be my, last two teams rounding out like at-large teams for this upcoming season. Don't really dive too much into mid-majors because we talk mid-majors so much. So a lot of this is power conference plus, the Gonzagas and the St. Mary's and, all that kind of jazz. But yeah, it should be a really fun year to follow college basketball. As I mentioned, the top 14 teams. If you were to tell me UCLA won the national championship this year, I'm buying it. I would not hate it. If you're telling me Louisville, ends up in the Final Four, I'm buying it. I think they can beat anyone in the country. We're set up for a really, really fun college basketball season. Last year, we had 4 teams who were just better than everyone else, and we saw it. We saw it in the regular season. We saw it in March Madness when they got all the way to the Final Four, the 4-1 seeds. This year, I think there's a little bit more flexibility, and hopefully we see another Cinderella story, a team, let's say, 6 seed or higher make the Final Four this upcoming season. I'm rooting on it. I know a lot of the college basketball world is rooting on it. It's going to be a fun year. Nevertheless, we are about 4 weeks away, just under 4 weeks away from college basketball. We did a lot of talking today. Thanks to everyone who stuck with us. Be sure to hit the like button before you head out and subscribe to the show. Turn on the post notifications. We got non-con games to know next year. We'll do a little bit of a dissection of the some of the biggest games around the college basketball landscape in the non-conference. Then follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Everyone have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you again in a week. Enjoy ball. See you later.